Welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers and those who support them. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. Today, I virtually trekked from Cape Town, South Africa to Switzerland, with stops in the United States and South America. Just a few of the places that ice swimming adventurer Andrew Chin has swam. With a hardy crew of limit pushers and inspired by Lynn Cox, they even made it to Antarctica. It was quite a thrill to hear the tales. Lately, Andrew has focused his time on bringing light to the important issue of water security and preserving South Africa's waterways with his Swim for Rivers initiative. If I can change the behavior of one person for the better, it's worth more than any of my swimming certificates, Andrew says. Together we can save our planet. I hope you enjoy this episode. So tell me,
Okay.
Andrew, what's your story?
I hope you'll interrupt me along the way.
I'll try to think of some good questions.
Yeah, so I thought what I'll do is just run through my swimming and kind of where it's taken me.
We'll start with where you started, just because I like the background. I like the backstory because some people think marathon swimmers or some people think that you have to have some really robust background, and some people do and some people don't, and I just like it as a comparison. So how did you start swimming?
All right, so I swam in junior school and then stopped swimming in high school through university, never swam. When I was, I think, 29, I had my oldest daughter was born, and I slipped a disc in L3-4 when she was about 9 months old. I had a little surgical procedure, and about a year later, I redid the same disc.
Oh no!
Yeah, we were traveling in Spain and picked up the suitcase, and that was the end of my back.
Oh my goodness!
I went back to my surgeon, and he said, "Well, you know what? Maybe you need to do the rehab properly." And he suggested that I start swimming. Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times since, and I don't think he kind of meant what I ended up doing. But I started my swimming pool at home, which is about 8 or 9 meters long.
Okay.
Until I could do about 40 lengths of that. And then I went to the local gym around the corner from me, and I started swimming there. And eventually, a gentleman by the name of Ralph King, who unfortunately is no longer with us, invited me to join a swim squad that happened there regularly. They still happen 3 mornings a week and lunchtime. Obviously not during COVID times, but
right.
Though we just gone into lockdown level 1 over here, which means all these things can resume. And two of my good friends at the time, Morty Lewis and Arnold Shapiro, were swimming. And I remember coming back. I'd been away with my wife, and we were coming back, and I said, these crazy guys are swimming a mile today in some freshwater dam. I said, who in their right minds would want to do that? And then I bumped into a very good friend of mine, Gavin Pike, and he said, no, he's training to do a Robben Island swim. I said, yeah, well, that's crazy. There's no ways I'll ever do that, but I'll come and join you in the sea. And I trained with him and Hester and another guy, Andrew Watts, and the bug bit the cold water, which I liken to eating chilies. It bites when you get in or have that first bite, and then your body kind of goes for those endorphins. And I coped relatively well with the cold. I was probably 10 kilograms heavier than what I am nowadays. Always helps to be well lined.
Yes.
And about 8 or 9 months later, I did my first Robben Island swim. I had my brother and my brother-in-laws on my support boat. They were drinking Old Brown sherry while I was cursing.
Remind me the distance of Robben Island.
7.2 kilometers.
Okay.
As the crow flies.
As the crow flies.
Yeah. So generally, your faster swimmers keep a good line, and they'll do 7.2, 7.3. Some of us end up doing up to 9.5 kilometers. So I did my first Robben Island in 2002. It took me 3 hours 13 in relatively choppy conditions. But I was quite chuffed. It's the first time I'd really succeeded in doing anything that I kind of set a goal for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then during the squad, I became friendly with Ramba Kai and Judy and a bunch of other people, and we set about doing a second Robben Island. The water in the second one was about 17 degrees as opposed to 13.5 on my first one, and very flat. And I loved it. It was awesome. And I did it. I think we swam in about 2.25 hours, probably just under. So it wasn't.
Oh wow!
It was an hour. It was an hour faster. And that was just because of conditions and warmer water and all that. Kind of then the Robben Island bug bit. The Cape Long Distance Swimming Association, which coordinates Robben Island swims, was run by some legends in local swimming. Peter Bales being one. He was the first South African to swim the English Channel from England to France. There was someone who swam from France to England years before that. And I kind of always, along the way, and I'll try and mention their names, people who I've drawn inspiration from. So Pete was already probably in his early 60s when I did this. And I had him second me on a couple of swims. He took Ram and I around Cape Point. Ram had a lot braver than me. I sat on the back of the boat crying because this 8 foot swell that was coming through onto Dias Beach, and I was petrified. Ram jumped off the boat and started swimming. I was left with little choice but to follow him. And we went around Cape Point. We were the first males to do that. It had been done by Lynn Cox, amongst others. Someone else who I've drawn a lot of inspiration from. And I hated almost every minute of that swim.
Oh my goodness.
I've never been back to do it. From there, I ended up swimming around Robben Island with Ryan Stramrud and Kyron Palferman. And if it wasn't for the fact that Ryan was faster than me, we would have jointly held the record for the fastest swim. But he left me somewhere along the way. So those were my kind of early introductions to Cape waters. On a Sunday, I'd regularly go and swim with Gavin and Hester. Ram joined us, Morty, and we started a group which is now called the Sunday Hot Chocolate Group, which has a life of its own. I haven't been there for about 2 years since I lost the weight. I'm scared of cold water, so so I haven't really been back, but it has a life of its own, which is fantastic. And it's all it's about getting people into the water, used to the conditions. There's a lot said about marine life over here, but there's marine life everywhere, and no swimmer we have 2 sides where we swim, the False Bay side and the cold Atlantic side. Actually, they're both Atlantic, but it's semantics. So on the false bay side, where we used to swim, there had been great white attacks, but not for a number of years. And where we generally swim, it's pretty safe. We swim within the bay. People can swim whatever distance they like. And as I say, at night, it has its life of its own. We get up to 50, 60 swimmers on a Sunday morning, and it's become church for some people. Quite a healthy way of doing it.
Yeah.
So my life, it's gone on kind of tangents. In 2003, I think it was, I read about Martin Stroll, who had just swum the Mississippi River. I thought, oh, that sounds like quite a nice thing to do, but it must be horrible doing it by yourself. So I decided to swim the Orange River, which is South Africa's longest river. But I kind of convinced a whole bunch of people to join me. Cheryl, Gavin did most of it. We had a couple of people. We just did one leg. We broke it up over 4 years because none of us had the time to take 40 days. It ended up taking us 40 days in total to do the 1,900 kilometers. We did it in relay. So there was always someone in the water. We did 15, 20, 30-minute time slots, depending on the water temperature. And while we weren't swimming, we were paddling. So it was long days in the water. I think we covered, our biggest day was about 80 kilometers. I don't know what that is in miles, probably 50 miles or something. We did go with the flow, so we went like salmon. We didn't go upstream. And that was just an amazing adventure. Lots of organizing. Our safety crew was awesome, and I made good friends. And I actually then had the opportunity of meeting Martin a couple of years later. He came to swim in Cape Town. I'm glad to say I don't think I'm half as crazy as what he is. And I mean that really, not just in terms of swimming stuff. And then along the way, my cousin Greg, they immigrated to the States, and he got married out near San Francisco, and I went and I organized to do an Alcatraz swim, which ended up being quite a lekker swim. Lekker is a South African slang for good swim, nice swim. Much easier than what I anticipated. My fatal flaw was I asked both Pedro and Gary Emick. Gary, I did my first Alcatraz with Gary, about South Africans who had swum it, and they both said, "No, you're the first." So I came back home to South Africa and made a big splash about being the first South African to have swum Alcatraz. Little did I know that quite a few people had done that. Probably that was like realizing, one of the first times I realized that maybe being the first to do something is not necessarily the reason, the motivation to do something, because there's always a first. Someone's always going to be the first. I have been fortunate enough to have been the first, but there were people who did first before me who have inspired me to do things. So hopefully what some of my swimming mates and I've done has inspired other people along the way. Ended up doing some swims to raise money for charity. We did a relay swim at the local pool here, where 6 of us swam 3 hours each in relay a day for a week. They kept the pool open, so we swam. It was called 24/7, and we raised, if we do a conversion, was only about $2,000, but in South African rands, it was a lot of money. Then kind of the cold thing, but Ram and I, ended up doing a lot of swims together. And we went one day to where Lewis Pugh was doing a training swim in a little ice portable pool in ice. And after Lewis had got into the car to go warm up, we jumped into this water, which was a couple of degrees, 2 or 3 degrees centigrade.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it quite enthralling, quite exhilarating. And we kind of then, a couple of weeks later, Ram and I went to go swim at Llandudno with Lewis Pugh. He seconded us from the beach. We did, I don't know what it was about half an hour, 40 minutes in like 7-8 degree water. And we got out, and Lewis said he only knows of 4 or 5 people who could swim in that kind of temperature. And that kind of gave us the affirmation we needed. Ram went off and swam in South America by himself in a freshwater lake. And kind of then convinced me to join him in Switzerland in February. We went off to Lake Zurich, and I don't know what the terminology would be, but I'm trying not to use like too many South Africanisms or my normal
it's educational.
bad friends. But I literally crapped myself from when we arrived till after the swim. We spoke about whether we had organized our wills and what would happen. So we both jumped into the water. I was repeating my wife and my daughter's names. And as soon as I kind of got that order a little bit confused, I said, "That's me." I put up my hand. They dragged me onto this boat like a beached whale. I'd swum 1.3 Ks. Ram went on to do 2 to about 2.5 kilometers. Wow. They put me on this boat, took me back to shore, but put a blanket over my head. And I thought I'd lost my sight, quite honestly. It was like for just a fleeting moment. It was, but 40 minutes after the swim, we were drinking shots and high on the endorphins. Mm-hmm. And really that's what cold water, I think, gives you is the endorphins. I then started looking at what other adventures we could do. We kind of in the middle of the world, but at the bottom end of the middle of the world, as it were. So I found the swim in Ketchikan, Alaska, and I convinced Ram and our friend Tux to come with us, and Ryan and Kyron joined us, and 2 South Africans who had immigrated, Joel Barnett and Lelani, came along, and off we went to Ketchikan, Alaska. Was an absolutely fantastic trip. The water ended up being quite a lot warmer than what we were anticipating. I think it was about 14 degrees Celsius. We got pulled around the island relatively quickly. And we had an absolute blast, or as we'd say in South Africa, Joel. We swam with Paul.
Was that the Panic Island? No, it was just a swim you guys made up your own.
Okay. No. We went out salmon fishing and ended up swimming with porpoises. Like,
oh, wow.
Jeff, who was our host, said he's never seen people jump off the boat and go and swim with these porpoises, which we thought they were killer whales to start off with, because they had the same coloring, but they were much smaller. From there we went back to San Francisco, where Greg lived, my cousin, and we ended up doing an Alcatraz again. And I told the guys, "Don't worry, this swim is a breeze. It's like." And we went out partying the whole night. And then did the swim, the difference between the first and the second one, my first and the second one, is the second one, we weren't allowed onto the island. We had to start parallel with the island and swim in. And the way we swam as a group was always Ryan and Karen in the front, me in the middle, and Raman Talks just behind. So it was always that kind of formation, the five of us in a figure five. I actually just thought of that. And we were quite a tight-knit group. Joel invited us down to La Jolla after that, and he had this big celebrity get together. We were the celebrities, but he invited Lynn to the event, and for me that's probably one of my swimming highlights was getting to meet her, because quite a few of the swims that we ended up doing were because of her. She trailblazed. She led the way. The whole thing around cold water, I don't think if it had been for Lynn and later for Lewis, and then a couple of us who followed, it would have still been a pretty dark, unknown area.
Right. No,
so after reading Lynn's book, I decided we were off to
Which
South
one?
America.
She's got several. Which one?
Swimming to Antarctica.
Okay.
But because of our exchange rates and everything else, and the distance and whatever, and because we South Africans, we don't do anything in half measures, we said, well, we're going there once and we're going to try to tick it all off. So we decided we're going to do Magellan Straits, then off to the Beagle, and just to round it off, we're going to try and get to Cape Horn, which until that point no one had done.
Wow.
So I got hold of, I think it was Rachel in New York, and Christian. We had swum with what was her name? Claudia in Punta Arenas. She had organized for them to do a crossing. And this, swimming community is actually quite a small community, and helpful. And Claudia put this whole thing together for us, and talk about like celebrities. Yeah, we arrive in Punta Arenas, and there's this minivan with our photographs like plastered all over this vehicle.
Wow.
Like, we were the famous South Africans. We had radio interviews, TV interviews. Wow. As is always the case, I fall at like the most inopportune times. Going into Lake Zurich, I slipped into the water. Doing the television interview in Punta Arenas, I fell down the stairs. It's kind of what I do, and my oldest daughter Layla does the same thing. I mean, so it's
you're better in the water.
It's better in the water. But I'm also always the last one in with my hands above my head. I've got a thing about getting in. It's like freezing cold, and I hate it. So Magellan, we went off to go and do, and we had this whole medal ceremony before we'd even done the swim. They presented us the Navy and the whole story. Like, we really felt like celebs. The wind came up and it blew at I don't know how many knots an hour, and the swim was called off.
Oh wow!
But we went and we just did a little reconnaissance swim for a couple of minutes, and the water was actually, we thought, was remarkably warm.
Huh. This was
we
Australia Magellan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We went back the next day and we started in pretty flat conditions. Our watchers said the water was about 13 degrees. The Navy insists that it was about 4 or 5 degrees. I'm not sure, they had these laser thermometers. I'm not sure how deep down And my certificate over there somewhere says that it was 4 or 5 degrees, but it wasn't. We know it wasn't.
Okay.
Halfway through the swims, we were joined by porpoises, dolphins. That's one of the beauties about doing what we do, is we get to swim with wildlife. The wind then came up like crazy, and it blew, but it was behind us.
Okay.
And we broke up into our formation, and the 5 of us got across onto the pebble beach at the end, which was quite hectic. My calves went into spasm, and anyway, we made it across. I think it took.
Wait a sec. What was that about a spasm?
My calves.
Oh, your calves. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, it's the accent. Going back on the Zodiacs back across, I think took us longer in the headwind.
Oh, wow.
Than what it took us to swim, and we had these waves breaking over the Zodiacs. We were sopping wet. It was an absolute nightmare, but we were on a high. It was 2 days later, we were off to do the Beagle Channel, and again, as South Africans would, I'm saying South Africans, like, we decided to go there and back. And it had been done before. It's not a long swim, depending on where you do it, And we had the Chilean Armada. We had both armadas, the Argentinian and the Chilean, because you swim across between the countries.
Uh-huh.
So we had to go, and we have our passport stamped both sides before the swim.
Okay.
And then we watched this current flowing in, and we dropped Kyron through in some wood, and we watched it like fly down. And we said, "Oh, well, now we're getting in here with all our clothes and stuff, and then we're going to go to the other side and then get back, and we're not quite sure how we're going to get back to where our clothes were."
Huh.
Anyway, so we go across, and the water was chilly. It was probably between 5 and 7 degrees. Beautiful clarity, lots of big jellyfish and a lot of kelp and stuff. Especially on the Chilean side, trying to get out and in again was quite a battle. I think I just beached myself on top of the kelp. Said, "All right, well, I'm out the water," and I turned around and got back, while the other guys like really fought their way to land. Coming back from Chile back to Argentina, we really got pushed quite a long way up, and we ended up on this little piece of coastline that had probably a 300-meter cliff to the to the top. I say cliff, I mean it was, but we had just been in the water for like an hour. The boats couldn't take us back. Kyron, who had gotten there first, had given the mayor of Porto Williams, which is the little Chilean village, he had given him a mouthful about not getting our clothes to us, and it sent this poor guy running up the hill to go and try and get our clothes to us. Anyway, we ended up having done the swim and celebrating in.
You found your clothes.
Some pub in Punta Arenas called something horses. I can't remember the exact name. Then the next day we caught our boat off to Cape Horn, and boat is a big word to use for what we were doing.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was a little fishing vessel, crab fishing boat, and off we putted down the coast, and we pulled into some harbour, and we said, we had a very tight schedule of how we had to do things. We had flights booked, and he says, no, we're here for like 2 days because there's a storm coming in or whatever it is. And I said to the guy, I'm throwing you overboard. I'm taking your boat. We are going down to Cape Horn. Anyway, a bit of shouting backwards and forwards, and we managed to convince him to take us.
Wow.
And we putted on through the night in quite hectic conditions. But in the morning when we arrived at Cape Horn, it was smooth. I wouldn't say flat, but it was smooth. There's always quite a big swell going through. There's only so much where the ocean pushes through between Antarctica and the bottom of South America, and we had the Chilean Navy escort us and our little fishing boat, but no one would come close. No one would come close to us. So Rome had plotted a route for us, which was, we thought, between the two lighthouses on the island. So we jumped in off the boat and then kind of just swam across. We got caught in a bit of a rip, and we ended up separating. So Ryan and Karen went off as they do. Me in the middle, and Tox and Rum took a slightly wider route. It was quite scary, actually, realizing you're in this deep cold water, because it was, again, I don't know, probably 5 degrees. But we were so high on adrenaline, really, that feel the cold afterwards. We didn't really feel it while we were swimming. Ryan and Karen got across or they got as far as the Navy would let us go across. We actually wanted to land on the island, and they wouldn't let us. They treaded water till I arrived, and then Roman Talks arrived a minute or two later. And as always, it took lots of convincing to get Rum to get onto the boat, because he had his mind set on getting to land. Anyway, so we then became unofficially, whatever it was, the first people to swim at the bottom end of South America. And again, we were joined by dolphins. But we swam through, and the water was clear. We swam through these big schools of fish. And then your mind starts wondering, like, what eats, if there's this kind of big fish, what eats the bigger fish? But thankfully, only the dolphins that came along. We ended up going back to South Africa, having done the 3 swims. Then I got involved again with Rum in what is now called the International Ice Swimming Association.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A couple of us assisted him it was his idea, his passion to get this going. In the first couple of years, I was quite actively involved. We ended up doing a couple of ice miles in a little town called Fraserburg in the Cape. And credit to Rum, he's managed to grow this into something much bigger. And kind of the pinnacle to all that, I guess, is Antarctica. When we went down, I think at that point only Lynn and Lewis had swum down there, and Rum on the continent. And our idea was to try swim south of below the bottom line, below the pole. Mm-hmm. So we ended up getting Gavin Pike joined us. So there were six of us. We stayed right in the bottom of the ship in the poor man's quarters. We had heaps of whiskey with us, which we were only drinking after the swim. Now, the swim could only take place under certain conditions. So every day, every night, we'd psych ourselves up for what the day would bring. Not drink our whiskey, wake up in the morning, and the wind would be blowing, and we'd have to wait another day. We ended up going down through the south, whatever it's called, and we missed our window to be the first people to swim that far south. Anyway, that's a first kind of become irrelevant, really. We ended up doing the swim. A couple of days later, the whole ship this whole cruise ship of paying guests came to a standstill. Some loved us and others hated us. You can imagine paying a lot of money to go on a ship, and everything comes to an end because 6 crazy South Africans want to go for a swim. The idea was to swim a mile.
Yeah.
So what we did, and one always learns along the way. So the first bunch of swimmers was Ram, Kyron, and Ryan, and they started from the ship and went kind of did a loop, half a mile and then back, and conditions were very tough on their swim. They had a leopard seal follow them for a short distance. Not that they knew about it. But, we saw it in the video afterwards. Ram, just after halfway, kind of realized that he was going to be in the water for a very long time if he was going to complete the mile. So he pulled himself out. I think he swam about 1.3 kilometers, I think it was. He was in the water for over 30 minutes, which is pretty good. I was seconding Kyron, who is a very, very strong swimmer. It's almost, I think he's done 6 of the Ocean 7. And if it wasn't for COVID, probably would have done 7. I was seconding him, and about 200 meters before the end, his stroke kind of went for a ball. And he started slapping the water, and I pulled him out, which wasn't an easy decision because at that stage he probably was 150 meters from the end. But he's still with us today. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Sorry, Karen.
Was he pretty mad about that?
He was really pissed at me for quite a long time. But in retrospect, it was the right call. Because we know he's we don't know what would have happened if it stayed around.
Right.
Ryan managed to do the mile. I can't remember exactly what his time was. The next day we reversed positions, but we learned, and we swam in a different place. I think we ended up swimming where Lynn swam, and we went a mile out and just swam in towards the ship. The wind was more favorable, and the water was a whole half a degree warmer. Which, when you're swimming at 0 or 1 degree Celsius, that extra half actually feels different. As I say, I was always pretty nervous of the swim, and I'd kind of spoken myself out of doing the mile swim before watching Kyron, and maybe even before that, I'd actually started to talk myself out of doing the mile swim. So Torx, Gavin, and I jumped into the water with a lot of superlatives, because it's ice cold. I mean, it is cold, and your hands, your fingers become numb, and you feel like you've got gloves on the outside of your hands. You can't feel the water, and yeah, and it actually, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And at about 800 meters into the swim, Kyron stopped me. He said, "You're halfway." And I said to him, "No, I've only got 200 meters left to go." And I kind of then counted my strokes. And when I thought I'd done the 200 meters, I stopped and I said, "That's me. I'm getting out." Gavin and Torx continued swimming, and they both did the mile. I hold the record for the longest recovery shower. Shortest swim, might be one of the fastest swims in Antarctica. I think I did my kilometer in about just under 14 minutes, and I think I showered for about 45 minutes. The lesson I took out of that is like what a big thing your mind plays in everything. Yes. And I'd spoken myself out of doing the mile swim. I think about it sometimes, and I'm not sure I regret it, having climbed out, because it's a decision and I'd made it. But if I hadn't made that decision and left it open, I might have stayed in. And kind of through all these things, what I've learned is that our mind, it's not the body. Our bodies can do anything. It's our minds that actually, so it's always 80% 20% in the body. We all do the training. All long distance swimmers do the training. I've never even thought of doing something like the English Channel, because my mind just can't get around the fact that I'm going to have to swim for 15 hours, 14 hours. My mind just doesn't allow me to go there. I don't know how long I've been rambling on for.
You're doing great. The so have you found something to tackle that now that you've got the mental wherewithal to know? Have you found something to tackle? Okay.
Just one more swim story before I do that. That was the Bering Straits relay that I know that James.
Oh yeah,
James spoke about. So the idea was to swim was a continuous relay from Russia to America, Alaska, across the Bering Straits, and the idea was to try and do it over 4 days. That swim was a long time in the making. I think only on its third or fourth attempt did it actually happen. And I was involved in trying to get the international swimmers involved, and Ram, with his ice swimming background, we managed to pull together quite most of the international swimmers ended up coming from us. And what was quite interesting, it was a big group of swimmers. How many of those people couldn't really swim? And I don't know whether I should be letting out all the. I mean, there was one guy we apparently jumped in, and they used a gaff to pull him up because he just sank.
Oh wow.
The swim itself was a great adventure, not without controversy. We different cultures, different ways of doing things. We had a big run-in with the Russian boat captain. We were abducted one of our swimmers for a day.
Oh my goodness!
And we had him locked up in his cabin afterwards, or so we thought, but we found out that wasn't all true. The swim itself, conditions are very unpredictable. We ended up swimming 6-meter swells. I don't know what that is, 18
Wow.
foot in
Yeah. Wow.
places. The water was freezing to start with. We had superb backup. Although I think when Paolo was swimming, Paolo the Italian, they would actually lost at sea for about half an hour because we couldn't find our vessel in the thick fog that had.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and the fog.
Wow.
And the fog that had descended. Yeah, we ended up crossing the international date line twice because we couldn't get permission from America. And it was Ryan's birthday. So Ryan's the only person I know we celebrated the same birthday twice. We ran out of toilet paper.
Oh no.
Because we ended up being on the ship for so long. And Tux, who is an old sea dog, had kind of seen this coming and had made us collect loo paper from the various public toilets that were there, and we ended up swapping toilet paper for vodka along the way. I can go into stories about what people used as substitutes for the swim. I mean, for toilet paper, but different. That's a story.
It's not a swim story. Another day.
Yeah. A great adventure. The last clip, and it kind of, I almost laugh at it now when you see everyone swimming the last bit with flags. The Russians love swimming with flags. Right at the end, the water had warmed up and it was like 14. But
oh wow!
One of the Russian organizers wanted his son to swim the last leg, and and I feel quite strongly about nepotism, especially in a country where we have a lot of it politically, and a lot of there were essentially probably 8 to 12 swimmers who really pulled that relay across, and to have a youngster of 14 swim the last leg and take the glory just didn't go down with me, and I made my colleagues, my fellow South Africans, boycott the end. So we never swam. We never swam in it. We someone photoshopped us in afterwards. Again, it's like, should I let my ego or whatever get in the way? And I don't regret it. I think sometimes one has to take a stance, and those of us who swam hard, and it wasn't just us South Africans. Craig Lenning, I don't know if you've spoken to Craig. I mean,
not yet.
Craig's a beast. Where we, there were sections where we, in our 15-minute slot, we swam probably 100 meters in the right direction. That's the kind of current we faced. And when swimmers are breaststroking, not to say that they couldn't handle the cold water, but when you're breaststroking at half a mile an hour and the current's pushing you backwards at 5, that kind of doesn't really go anywhere. Anyway, so that's kind of where my swimming then took me. I'm retired from ice swimming. I think I might have another Robben Island swim left in me somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I've kind of started doing things not for me, not for Andrew Chin. I've done those things, and I've received the pat on the back and basked in the glory and blown my ego all over the show. And I started a little non-profit called Swim for Rivers, where we highlight the plight of South African rivers, waterways. It's kind of, whatever you chuck into a stream goes into a river, goes into the ocean. And in South Africa, we've unfortunately a lot of legacy stuff, but our local municipalities haven't kept up with upgrades, and our rivers have really been badly neglected. Raw sewage is common in many, and I don't think South Africa is unique. In terms of that, it happens in real first world countries as well. But people are doing things about it, and I'd like to think that we as Swim for Rivers, and it's not just me, have also kind of are doing it in our own small way. And Swim for Rivers has morphed over time. Things change. The idea was always to try and swim at least 100 kilometers in a river. And now, because of time constraints and finances, I'm going at the end of this week, and we're doing a 2-day, probably 16, 17 kilometers swim over a couple of days, over 2 days, and we're doing a river cleanup. But we've spoken to kids along the way. We've gotten the press involved. We've gotten water authorities questioning us as to where the bad places are. So I'd like to think that we make a difference, and I try and focus on children, because behavioral patterns can still be changed. Adults, although we like to think we change our behavior, if we don't think about things, we kind of resort back to our norm, and people toss things without thinking, and afterwards you think, shit, I shouldn't have done that.
How long ago did Swim for Rivers start?
This is our 6th year.
6th year, okay.
Yeah. So every year we swim in a different state, province.
Okay.
We have 9 in South Africa. So we're doing, this will be our 7th. And so I've got 2 left. It's always a bit of a schlep trying to raise funds to do it when probably monies could be better used. I'm now using Swims for Rivers in a couple of other initiatives. We're cleaning a local little stream close to where I live. And 1 or 2 of the other people who have joined me in their towns are starting initiatives. We're also raising funds for an amazing product called a hippo roller, which is a barrel on a handle, really, which allows largely rural women to fill up, because in South Africa, as in a lot of third world countries, I suppose, running waters, we take it for granted, is something that is not accessible to everyone. So a lot of women in particular, and it is women, go down, fill up a bucket with 20 liters of water, and take it back home. And how much water does 20 liters allow you to do? So on average, I think a rural household will spend 4 hours a day collecting water. And when you think that it's not just women, but it's young girls, still very much division of labor type of stuff that happens. We should be at school, should be doing kid stuff, or spending hours doing this. So we over the years have collected funds to raise money for hippo rollers, and I've joined forces with a bunch of guys called the 8 Mile Club. And I don't know if you've heard of the Mid-Mar swim. It's the biggest open water swim in the world, which happens in South Africa, and they have about 20,000 entrants.
Yeah, I think I have heard of it. What's it again?
Mid-Mar.
What? One more time?
Mid-Mar, Mid-Mar.
Okay.
So the 8 Mile Club, because it's such a big swim, there are various swims within it. And the 8 Mile Club, which was started by Mervyn and Stan, they've used this event to raise money. So I've teamed with them, and we're raising funds now for hippo rollers, and for the equivalent of $100, it doesn't sound like a fortune of money when one makes a visible difference to the lives of a family, really.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my mission. My mission there is to try and I'm going to do a long cycle, probably in a month or so's time, to raise funds for that. And I've used a lot of my swimming stuff around. I now do mountain biking and a little bit of running. And I did a long cycle recently. It's called the 361. It's 361 kilometers, which is, I don't know, 200 odd miles, and you've got 36 hours to do it. And talks who I swam with in Antarctica, like he said, I always knew you were going to do it. I said, why? He said, because you never once said you weren't going to do it. Yeah. So that's the mind thing.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing I'd like to touch on is swimming in Cape Town. Really, Cape Town is probably one of the most beautiful towns that one could wish to visit. We have it all. Within a mile, you can climb a mountain, drink red wine, or swim in the ocean. We have a number of iconic swims. Robben Island, famous because that's where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated for so many years. Lots of many shorter swims. And it used to be quite a difficult thing to organize, and it's now relatively easy. With the kind of currency exchange rate that we have for you guys from America and Australia or Europe to come to South Africa is a cheap holiday. You can stay in places like, when we go to the States, we slum it. You guys can stay in 5-star hotels and go home with money to spare, and have amazing trips. The Cape Long Distance Swimming Association will help you. I was fortunate enough to be chair for 3 years. The current chair and her team are fantastic bunch. The longest swims, if one wants to do the equivalent of an English Channel and swim past an island renowned for great white sharks, we have that on offer for you as well. Conditions are great right through the year. It never, our waters here will vary between probably 8 degrees and 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. Never snows. Rains in winter, but it doesn't get colder than about 10 degrees Celsius ever. So, for those people who live on the East Coast, you'll be running around barefoot and in shorts and slip-slops. What do you guys call slip-slops? So I'm using this forum to swimming in South Africa.
A plug for tourism.
a big punch. And we need it. COVID's been hard for a lot of people. Restaurants and hotels have been closed. We still can't have big swimming events because we're limited in terms of numbers. Google adventure swimming or Cape Long Distance and come and swim. I really have spoken a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Let's see if we can just touch on, so you mentioned a few times about being petrified, but kind of doing something anyway. And you talked a little bit about kind of, the mental limits that we place on ourselves. If somebody was looking for any guidance or recommendations for how to get past that stuff, what would you tell them?
you actually just got to do it. And it's baby steps. Yeah, I don't think if it had been for my swimming colleagues, swimming mates, and unfortunately, some of us have gone our separate ways. But if it hadn't been for those guys, and we pushed and pulled each other, I don't think any of us would have achieved what we did. I used to get my late father to come and watch me swim at Camps Bay because I was too scared to swim by myself. So I'd have him stand on the beach. I mean, and he was a little bit disabled, so I'm not sure what he actually would have done to help me. But it just
feels good.
That little bit of reassurance that someone's watching you, and that's really what, like, the Sunday, the hot chocolate swim is about, for newbies to come to swim with experienced swimmers. There's always someone watching you, telling you not to freak out when you start hyperventilating because it's cold. Take a deep breath. Swim 5 strokes. Take a rest. Go closer in. All that kind of stuff. We were all there. Where I grew up, I didn't grow up near the ocean. So big waves still scare me. As I said, Cape Point, if it wasn't for Ram being gung-ho and jumping off the back, I might still have been sitting on the back of that Zodiac, waiting to swim. But our biggest limitation. We limit ourselves. We limit ourselves every day, and sometimes it's not a bad thing, because I think to know your limits is a good thing. Like when I climbed out in Zurich and when I climbed out in Antarctica, maybe that was my limit.
Right.
And if I hadn't known my limit, I might not be here to be jabbering away.
Yeah.
Thank God no one has died yet. I always say yet because it is unfortunately kind of, these things happen, and it's through no one's fault or no one's negligence or anything. And swimming doesn't have to be someone's goal. It could be walking 5 kilometers, or it's kind of just getting out there and doing something, challenging ourselves. And that's like my swim for rivers. I've now got my 21-year-old daughter she's joined me on a few. That's and great. We went back to the spot that we had cleaned like 3 weeks before, and it was just as bad as we had been in. And she said, "Dad, look, and it's hard."
Yeah.
But and even that, you challenge yourself to go back and do it, even though it's not making a difference, but it is making a difference. It's a small difference. It's maybe not even, it won't be seen today or tomorrow, but you know what? When I do these talks to kids in particular, if I can change the behavior of one of you, I've achieved more than any of my swims and my certificates and whatever. I can change the behavior of one person for the better, because that one person is going to change the behavior of one other person, and exactly. They're going to, it's that knock-on effect.
Yep, I love it.
And when we hand out the Farolas, I'm going to tell them all, I want one bag of litter from you guys as payment for the, nothing for nothing.
Right.
Yeah, but as together, we can save our planet. It's not too late.
Yeah. Yeah. The last thing I want you to tell us before we probably should wrap it up. If somebody wanted to, raise water quality awareness in their own local waters, what would you recommend to them for like a first step? If somebody wanted to do something in their own place, at their own water.
Identify the area, and it really doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a big spot, a big place. It's the kind of thing that'll they'll pick up momentum. Our first little river cleanup, there were 2 of us. The next one, there were 7 of us, and we're hoping for 20 at the next one. And there are these groups on Facebook and other forums who will give advice, and I think they'll all tell you that they started
just by doing.
Started with a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm tired of seeing that. Yeah. When I go cycling, every couple of weeks I see a guy in quite a busy area picking up cigarette butts, and his bag has just gotten bigger and bigger. And he's in his probably mid to late 70s, and that's all he does. He doesn't do it for anyone else but himself. He's never asked anyone to do it. It's his contribution, and so we don't have to worry about how big we're going to do it or who's going to notice. As long as you know, and you're doing it for the right reasons, people will pick up. And as I say, if you change the way one person does it, then that person's done a great thing.
Yeah. Yep. Like you said, hopefully they can tell one more person, and then one more.
And you know what? We've always got someone who loves us enough, or supports us enough, or who believes in us enough to do what we think is, to follow what we think is crazy, or whether it be my brother-in-law or my daughter or a friend, or just a stranger, strangers that will be trolling the internet and say, hey, this guy's done this, and Ron swims in this. I mentioned what a small community we are. You get asked questions by people who you've never heard of and who you probably will never speak to, and I've never not had a response from someone.
Right.
Yeah. That person has made a significant difference to my life without them being aware of it.
Yep. Yes. I like to not think that they're stupid endeavors. We're curious. We're curious people, and we just have to find out what happens when you pick up the litter, when you push yourself a little further, when you see what cold water's like. Just be curious.
Be curious, but know your limits. Like, don't go swim in water that you know is laden with sewage. You're going to get. That's true. You're going to get sick. I mean, and unfortunately, on some of our swims, we've picked up E. coli. I was sick with it for long enough to know that I don't want it again. Don't be a hero.
Right.
Yeah. We need you to be there tomorrow to do it again.
Yeah.
Don't be we don't need one-time heroes.
Right.
we have enough of those. I mean, there are enough of them out there. We don't need everyday people just being one-time heroes. Shannon, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been really wonderful. Wonderful to hear your story.
Thank you. It was great. I enjoyed it so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll let you know when I can get my family to come to South Africa.
And if you can ever come to my city, Philadelphia, we have a river swim, 8-mile river swim every year. And if you ever want to join us, it's called the Bender Memorial Marathon Swim.
Okay,
and
I'll be
in
there.
The Schuylkill River.
Okay.
Always
keen.
Yes. So wonderful listening.
All right, you guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. Bye, Andrew.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Shannon.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Do you want to take Marathon Swim Stories with you? Subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. Want to connect with like-minded limit pushers? Join us for Marathon Swim Stories Live on Tuesdays at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 13:30 GMT. Thanks for watching.